Good evening, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the thing show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find itself to America or find his or her way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous one. And sorry, you guys, for the suspension for a couple of weeks, but these platforms, whenever you start speaking and people start thinking and they see people online start thinking about what's being said, it makes all the bullshit that they're put out in the mainstream media, it makes people see right through it. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in and checking us out and supporting us. Thank you. And not knowing how long we're going to be here, if you look on the YouTube page, we have a website, AAAINTA, AINTA, African Americans Ain't Africans.com. It's just pared down so you don't have to spell it all out, but AAAINTA.com. So check us out, support us over there. Send this information out to your family and friends because it's definitely, especially with what's going on with in the world today, is definitely needed. The title of tonight's program is The Freedmen Had 17 Identities. How come Africa wasn't one? These are the kind of questions we're going to have to ask. These are the kind of questions that our kids are going to be asking. And when your kids ask, you better have the answer. Joining me tonight, as always, is the Accomac Guardian, Miss Lisa Cypress. How you doing, Lisa? You're muted.
Kayuk. Hello, everyone. Peace to all. Peace to the chat. Waiting for people to come on in. Come on down. Come on into the chat. The water's fine. Feels good.
Lloyd
Ah,
Carter, how you doing tonight, brother? So we want to say welcome to everybody. And we really want to get into this, the freedmen, the 17 identities of the freedmen, and why our ethnic identity is changing in every generation. And the reason this is done is to confuse us, to keep us confused. And then we get confused so much, we don't even understand that we start doing it ourselves. We start confusing ourselves, calling yourself things that your people didn't call themselves. Wouldn't it make sense if we called ourselves the people where our folks come from, like the Accomacs, the Mississippians, the Lettahatchee? Wouldn't that make sense? Why is that we're always connected to something else, namely something else somebody else came up with? And then when we talk to our children and we talk to each other, all we get is confusion. So we want to clear some of that up tonight. We're going to let you know what's going on with what's this Congress they're doing with these Native Americans, how they're just walking all over you, walking all over your mama, your granddaddy, just wiping their feet on your face. And you don't seem to have a problem. You keep running away from what they're doing. Well, if you don't want to listen to this, bring the kids up because it's going to be for them. Lisa, what you say?
absolutely. I mean, the problem is you have to know who you are, right? You have to know your history. You have to know who you are. You really cannot wage any kind of battle. You can't make any kind of claim, whether it's reparations or anything else, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know the real history. Like when they make reparations claim and they don't really know their history or whether their people were actually slaves or not, people look ridiculous. All these people, they're like, of course, everybody, we were slaves. We were slaves. Come on now. How about all these white people? Where do you think these white people came from? What do you think they were doing? How do you think they got here? You think these people were all like nobility? These people weren't nobility. These people were criminals. And you know that. So I mean, this is the thing. We have to be really mindful of like what is the real history. And then we have to because you can't I mean, I think we go into these forums and we sound intelligent because we recite back what they teach us. No, we sound really dumb because they teach us a bunch of lies. And the fact that we parrot it back to them makes us look ridiculous. It makes us look ridiculous, like a bunch of puppets.
Just look at it from their point of view. Look at it from what they're saying. Look at from what they're. This is what they taught you. We rarely go back into our history. I'm talking rarely. Just go back and look at where our grandmothers were from. Many of us don't even do that. But we try to talk about stuff we know nothing about. And all it brings is utter confusion. Is that what you're saying, Lise?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to I mean, when you have people that are, senators and, they're trying to, wage a battle, and they are still sitting on the education that they received back in 1960. That's a problem. If you have not researched past what you were taught in the 60s, and that's what you're basing, whatever your arguments are all upon, that's a problem. You're not going to be able to stand toe to toe with people when your information is outdated and your information is not researched and your information doesn't show that you have a very thorough understanding of who and what you're talking about. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, what's a freedman? What is a freedman?
Well, what is a freedman?
Well, according to this document from a book, first of all, we got to understand that never in history, on a continuous basis, were we ever, never called Africans. We could just think of it. Anytime somebody Pan Africans has something to say to you, just have them keep an account of how many places in records, literature, texts, whatever, are we recorded as being the Africans or the African slaves. We got 17 names, but African ain't one. How is that? How is it that if all these people actually believe that we were transported on ships here and that we're really African, of African descent or African people, how is it that there's nothing to show? It's not even written. We're not written down anywhere. Is that we got all these different names? Why would you pick up somebody from Africa and be like, oh, they call tacos, they call Negroes, they call, just making up names that have no connection to what they are? Why would anybody do that? Like, how does that make sense? See, that's the thing. Just basic common sense is all you have to do to apply to this illogical stuff we're being taught. We don't have billions of records that have us recorded as being the Africans, the African slaves. We got 17 different names that they call us, but African is not utilized. Why is that?
Especially in this late date and time. I mean,
Right.
really, we're moving into the 21st century. We're deep into the 21st century, 22nd, whatever century this is, and we're still teaching our children stuff that don't make no sense, and we don't question it, and we stay stuck on these names no matter how degrading they are. Some
Right.
of this stuff that they got us calling ourselves, I mean, the world looks at this and be like, you guys got to be out of your mind. Why would you call your mama that? Why would you call your children that? And we will fight to be able to do that.
Well, Amani Bay has a good channel, but nobody watches his channel very much, and he has a lot of great information. And one point that he makes repeatedly is that if this DNA is matching you to the Africans, then why do they need to immigrate over here? They got family. I mean, they don't need to go through no special immigration process because all they got to do is connect with you. You're their passport in here, right? You're their key to being citizens. Because if they actually are you and you are us, then you should be able to get your hookup there and they should be able to have their hookup here, if that's true. But it's not true, see? They're not your cousins, they're not your kin. And the DNA does not match you to those people. They're lying. See, that's the problem. They would have, if it was DNA was true, they'd be like, cousin. They'd be coming over here in leaps and bounds trying to find our butts.
Is that happening?
No, sir.
No,
Because they're
on.
not. And anytime somebody says you're African, ask them why. Ask them why the Africans are not hooking up and finding their kin here so they can have instant status. So they can instantly be American. And you can instantly be whatever they are because you're family. See, that's not true. It doesn't happen. So how can they insist that you are African if that doesn't happen, if that doesn't actually occur? That part. The other thing, the other thing, actually, that's true. And a free color, this little notice says a free color person, colored American. This is a picture of a freeman. Could you move that thing? I can't. Yeah, this is a picture of a freeman. He is not a African. This is a picture of a freeman with exclamation point. He is not an African, but one of those Americans italicized called Africans. This document said a free colored American. This is a picture of a freeman. He is not an African, but one of those Americans called Africans.
And
Freemen are free people, period.
And if you go back into some of your family's genealogy, you will see brothers dressed like that.
Oh, when they came, that's the whole thing. I mean, they try to have you. I mean, not that if it was a hot day, you're not going to be out in your little skimpy, gear trying to not stay cool. But the reality was we were always suited and booted. We've always been people that like our clothes, our fashion. We set the standards. So don't think that we weren't here looking fine and dapper. We were. Don't believe the hype. Now we had the Senate had a hearing. Oh, did I miss mine? I think I didn't. I don't think I have it up and ready. Let me see. Yeah, because I had taken it down. There she is, Maxine Waters, but I still ain't got my. Oh, it's just over. Oh, what does it say? Over. Oh, still not showing up. Over. It's not oversight. Where's the oversight committee? Okay. Oh, okay. So don't make me leave. I'm not trying to leave the site.
So yesterday, the Congress had a little meeting on this freedmen, because you hear about the Native Americans kicking the freedmen out or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You hear these type of stories. When you go back and you read those stories and you look up those stories and you see what we calling ourselves now, what's that? ADOS, Black First, all these terms, those were terms that weren't utilized back in those days. This is how we stay confused for another 100 years. This is why we say, check your genealogy. Check out where your grandmama's from. Where did she live? Who are the people she grew up with? Who are the people that live down the road from her? This is easily founded. You can look this up yourselves. All these names that are coming through, like those 17 names that you were called before you were called African American, this is how we get caught up and hooked up in this stuff, because we're taking other people's version of who we are. Oh, Lisa, you ready?
Almost. Hold on. Just gotta make sure the sound.
So, very important. Do your genealogy. Depending on where you were born. If you were born in the 60s, you probably a grandparent by now. Show your children and grandchildren who their people are. They probably won't see it now because you're caught up in this worldly stuff going on right now. But in a few years, you're going to see it.
The 19th day of July, 1866.
I understand that each of the 5 tribes have many witnesses that are there in person today. Thank you for traveling to be before the committee on a very important topic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Murkowski, and we wish you a speedy recovery and look forward to seeing you soon. Are there other members of the committee wishing to make an opening statement? If not, we'll turn to our first witness, who is a towering figure in history enough so that she comprises her own panel. We are pleased to introduce the Honorable Maxine Waters, U.S. Representative for the 43rd Congressional District in California. Congresswoman, your full written testimony will be made part of the official hearing record, and we look forward to your remarks. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much, Chairman Schultz. Vice Chair Murkowski and members of the committee. Today I'm here to discuss an issue I care very deeply about, but has been ignored for far too long. Many remain unfamiliar with the history of those who came to be known as the Native American freedmen and the ongoing plight of their descendants. The freedmen were Black individuals who were enslaved by 5 formerly slave-holding tribal nations and were forced to walk and suffer on the Trail of Tears alongside their slave masters. A year after the Civil War ended, the 5 tribes agreed to abolish slavery and accept freedmen and their descendants as full tribal citizens under the 1866 treaty agreements they made with the United States government. Specifically, the 1866 treaties required the 5 tribes to abolish slavery and to agree to treat and accept formerly enslaved individuals and their lineal descendants as equal tribal citizens. For example, the treaty signed by the Cherokee Nation reads, and I quote, "All native-born Cherokee, all Indians and whites legally members of the nation by adoption, and all freemen who have been liberated by voluntary act of their former owners or by law, as well as free colored persons who were in the country at the commencement of the rebellion and are now residents therein, or who may return within 6 months from the 19th day of July, 1866, and their descendants who reside within the limits of the Cherokee Nation, shall be taken and deemed to be citizens of the Cherokee Nation," quote unquote. The 4 other tribes all signed similar treaties. Despite the fact that these treaty obligations still exist and are binding on the 5 tribes beginning in the late 1970s and early 1980s, the tribes began to take formal actions to take away the citizenship rights of descendants of freedmen. For instance, in 1983, freedmen were prohibited from voting in Cherokee Nation elections and received letters informing them that their citizenship had been canceled. In 2007, the Cherokee amended their constitution to limit citizenship to only individuals who were, quote, Cherokee by blood, unquote. These actions led to years of litigation that was finally settled in 2017 when a federal district court judge ruled in favor of the freedmen and their right to citizenship. In this ruling, the judge stated, and I quote, in accordance with Article 9 of the 1866 treaty, the Cherokee freedmen have a present right to citizenship in the Cherokee Nation that is coexistent with the rights of Native Cherokees, quote, unquote. Following the court decision, which the Cherokee Nation accepted as binding, the tribe has taken actions to comply with the decision and ensure that descendants of freedmen are treated as equal citizens. Before my committee, Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin testified that these actions have made the Cherokee Nation, quote, a better nation for having recognized full and equal citizenship of freedmen descendants. Despite the actions of the Cherokee to right the wrong inflicted on its freedmen, the descendants of freedmen of the other 4 tribes continue to be denied tribal citizenship and other basic rights associated with citizenship, like equal access to federally funded affordable housing. My committee even heard testimony last year that freedmen have even been denied access to life-saving vaccines during the ongoing pandemic. It was this testimony that prompted even the Biden administration to designate all Seminole freedmen as eligible for healthcare services, including the COVID vaccine, through the Indian Health Service. However, this only decision only applies to Seminole freedmen and not freedmen from the other tribes. We know that equal access to housing sits at the heart of many of the racial and economic injustices we continue to see across the country today. As chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee, I recognize that Native communities face some of the worst housing conditions in the United States. It is also important to recognize that the legacy of land and cultural disenfranchisement has created and maintained these circumstances. That is why I propose providing $2 billion for affordable housing in tribal communities in my Housing is Infrastructure Act, and why I'm moving to reauthorize NAHASDA with language that ensures that descendants of freedmen have equal access to these resources, as the 1866 treaties promised. When Barney Frank, my predecessor, was chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, he recognized the plight of the freedmen and was a staunch advocate for their rights. I worked closely with him.
Okay, so she said something about putting out like $2 billion for housing and making sure that the freedmen have access to that as well. Here's the thing. Look, gotta love Maxine Waters, but they don't understand the history. They're still listening to the misguided information that we've been taught by these deceptive historians and educators. It's problematic. Do you see the guy sitting behind her? He is the he represents the Choctaw. He back there growling and moaning and groaning and making faces because the Choctaw don't agree with this at all. The Seminole and I think the Creek speak as well, and they weren't all on it either. Okay, so the problem is that they don't agree with they feel like, okay, y'all are African. Really, that's basically what it is. The problem is that they got this whole thing with, you just straight African. That's basically how they act. And they're angry, it's a problem.
May I for a second?
Mm-hmm.
This is what you have to notice about these terms that are used against us, because that's one of the things that we always fall for. They make up any kind of term and they kind of train us like dogs anyway. We won't even call ourselves what our people call themselves. They'll tell you you're black. Yes, boss, I'm black. My mama's black. My children and grandchildren will be black, boss. That's how the African American thinks. So these Native Americans, you ever wonder how come they just don't call themselves Americans? You don't hear Native Nigerian, Native Poland, Native Bulgarian. They just call themselves what they are, what land they're connected to. Why do they call themselves Native? And then why do we copy them and call ourselves Native too? Confusing the whole process. So these are some things we're going to have to look at and pay attention to, because a lot of times we do things thinking we're wise and we're making asses of ourselves. All you got to do is call yourself the land you from, do your genealogy.
So Maxine, she's talking about the treaty. She's talking about Freeman. This is the whole thing, the whole misnomer. Freeman, freedmen. These people are free. How are we waging these battles for reparations and for freedmen without even researching the terms, without even researching the history that lies before these terms? I looked up freedmen. Let me go to my next share. Hold on. Let me get my face into place and fix this for you. We can share screen once again. And we can go to the tab that's going to be I'm sorry. Wikipedia. It's got to be close to that. Waters. There it is. Okay, let's share that. Okay, so Wikipedia. I like to look at the bottom of Wikipedia because that's where the references are, right? In the references, you can see, what's up, what is up, okay? So we're there, in the references, when you really take a good look at them, you're going to see that the one that I have kind of gray highlighted, that's the only one that got some age on it. Everything else is like 2021, 2011, 2005. Like they're all recent references to explain what a freedman is. The one that I have that's gray highlight was done in 1957. That's the oldest, right? That is a encyclopedia of a German encyclopedia of law, actually, is what it is. So that's an interesting thing. So let me kind of go to that. I don't know if I can just switch it out. No, I don't know. Let's see here. No, I gotta go like this. And share screen. And there we go. It's a German, it's an encyclopedia of Roman law. Okay. All right. So let me see if you guys can, if that's visible yet. But basically, when you look in the Encyclopedia of German Law, that is the one reference that it has any age to it, 1957. This one's actually a 1968 edition, but it's the same citation or whatever. They have Freeman, and Freeman, if I go a little bigger on this, you'll see it says a freeborn, considered a free citizen, freeborn, freeborn. That's not even what they try to say, Freeman, like you were. See, what they always want to make the Negro Indian, the Afro Indian, a slave. No matter what, you're a slave. So you're gonna be freeman. You're gonna be a slave. So even if you're a freeman, you're a former slave. If you're an inventor, you're a former slave, right? Because they have to push us into the narrative that this country wants to perpetuate about us. We cannot be the landowners. We cannot be the original people. We always have to be the transported slaves who are actually African. That's why we always got to be the slave or in some form or fashion. Looking at the true numbers of how many of us were free doesn't coincide with what they want to daggone push out there into the world. They will not be able to keep everything they've stolen if the truth about who we are comes out. And I don't know if Maxine just don't know. I don't know if these descendants of freedmen just don't know. I don't know if they just too tired to learn anything new. Or they know it and they just playing along to make it seem like these freemen are getting something good when it ain't crap.
Ding, 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 ding.
It's not crap. Because let me tell you, if you are a free person, why? Okay, this is what they want to say. You're their little package of slavery. You're their slave, right? Like their pet. And they toted your butt to Oklahoma with them. The Indians with the long straight hair, the real Indians. Well, let's see what the real story is, because that ain't true. Okay, Maxie. Sorry, like you and all, but that's not true. Because we know that the original chief, the original chief of the Cherokee, the one before, not the original, but the last heritage bloodline chief. Okay, let's just go to that real quick. Let's just jump into that. Let's go to the last bloodline chief, because if you don't understand who these players are, how are you going to speak to what they're doing and whether it's right or not? You don't know what's going on. You got to know their history. You got to know the history. So if you go to the actual let's go see who are these daggone chiefs? What are they? So we're going to share the screen again, and we're going to go to John Ross. Okay. John Ross. Let's go and look at him real quick.
Jordan Story's biographies, John Ross. From 1828 to 1860, the Cherokee people were led by the remarkable John Ross. During a 32-year period that ended with his death, Ross presided over the birth of Cherokee Nation, the removal of his people from their homeland, and the founding of a new nation in a distant place. John Ross was born in 1790 in Turkeytown, in present-day Alabama. He spent his childhood at the base of Lookout Mountain in an area that eventually became a part of North Georgia. His mother was a mixed-race Cherokee Indian, his father a Scottish trader and store owner. Growing up, Ross became knowledgeable about Cherokee customs. but he spoke mostly English and practiced European traditions. In 1813, Ross began his own business, trading and selling goods with the United States government. He opened a store at Ross's Landing on the Tennessee River, a city that would later.
Okay, so that's enough for him. All right, so this is the whole point of it. Ross, he wasn't even Cherokee. His grandmama might have been. That's how much Cherokee he was. He didn't speak it. He didn't have any real associations except he lived around some real ones. Because the real ones, let's go to that. The real ones stopped being when he came into power, which he was made a chief by the government. He's a government created Indian. That's what they did. And that's what all these Indians are. They're government created. Although during these hearings that happened this week, the government's going to say, oh, no, Indians are sovereign. They do their own thing. No, you pull all the strings. You say who an Indian is to this day. You say who's acknowledged, who's not recognized, who gets funding, who don't, who gets land, who don't. Come on now. Stop lying, United States. Stop lying about you don't have nothing to do with the Indian. And you don't, oh, they do their own thing. We ain't got no responsibility in that. Come on now. Stop lying. Okay, so now we're going to look at Path Killer. Path Killer is actually not, he is the last, let me make it a little bigger for y'all. He's one of the, and if you look under Cherokee National Leader, it says Path Killer was the last hereditary chief of the Cherokee. He was the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation from 1811 to 1828, which that would actually put him right on the back of John Ross. But actually, in between him and John Ross was Charles Hicks. And then before him was a black fox. You got to know a black fox got to be black. But anyway, what they said also is that he was the last full-blooded chief. He was also the last hereditary chief. They know this. So if John Ross was just basically a Scotsman, he was Scottish. If he was just a Scot, then how are these people that's chiefs now? What are they? Because if in 1828 he was the chief that was appointed by the government, what's everybody today? If he was just Scottish. That point. See, if Maxine and the people the freedmen knew to speak to power, could speak to power, who these people are, you could unhinge them. They need to be unhinged. That hearing should have unhinged them. It should have been like, look, when we're first contact people, who are you? Who are you? That's what it should have been. It shouldn't have been nothing but that. Talking from the point of, look, you better recognize. Okay, first of all, why call us 14 different names in time? Really 17. If we are Africans, we should have been called Africans continuously since 1492, all throughout records, everywhere, all throughout history books, everywhere. Every document, everything should be either said African or African slave. Why do we have all these daggone names? What's the purpose? If all we are is African, if that's what we really are, white, colored, white Caucasians don't have all these different names. Why we got so many doggone names? And why this boat don't got no storage? You see a little storage area on there? That ain't no room to put nothing. Anyway, Negro, color, black, freedman, slave, free person of color, mulatto, coon, nigger, Negro, African American, black African American. Why? And you got jigaboo, all kinds of other things you could put in there. But why so many names for one people? That's the question.
Trying to
Go ahead.
disconnect you from who you are.
And to disconnect you from the land. That too. So you go to the primary sources. They should be referring to these things in this hearing. This hearing is an opportunity to say, look, according to the primary sources written in the 1600s, they described us, their color when they grow up is a chestnut brown and tawny, but much clearer in infancy. The History of Virginia, Book 3, Chapter 1, page 140. Why are we not using that information? Because they contest that because we are brown, that we aren't the Indians. Because they have got these historians who have falsified information about us and written that we're white with straight hair. Yet William Strachey in the History of Virginia, the Traveler to Virginia Britannia, 1612, clearly wrote, they are generally a color brown or rather tawny. Next page. Their hair is black, gross, long and thick. The men have no beards. The men used to shave. The younger men had to shave. Only certain nobility had hair. Their nose is broad, flat, full at the end, great big lips. When I saw that, I nearly dropped the book when I saw that. When I got that book in the mail and opened it, flipped open pretty much to that page. When I saw the big lips, I was like, there you go. I never saw a Native American described as having big lips, ever. The women, they are generally tall statue, straight, comely proportions. The women have handsome limbs, slender arms, pretty hands, and when they sing, they have a delightful and pleasant tang in their voices. There are also books that talk about us playing ball games and all that other stuff. Things that apply to us, because I don't know Native Americans that are, all about balling all the time and singing, But anyway, that part. So this is the kind of thing that they should be talking about. Okay, so the brother, not a brother, but the Native American that was sitting up there making cringe faces behind Maxine, his name is the Honorable Michael Burridge, General Counsel for the Cherokee Nation, but he is claimed to be a Choctaw, he does claim to be a Choctaw Indian, okay? And what he did say, and I'm not going to bother to play it, is that Native Americans say freedmen are slaves. He said the freedmen are African slaves. He said they're African American. That's the term he used. He said they are African American. But the funny thing is that he doesn't call himself Caucasian American. He don't call himself Scottish American. He don't call himself Siberian American. He don't use a title that disconnects him from the land to describe himself, when in reality, he has more immigrant in him than anything domestic or anything at all native to the soil. But we don't even question that. And Maxine, nor do the freedmen people, descendants, they don't even say. And the other thing they say, why do they call them freedmen descendants? See, they just call him a Choctaw. They don't call him a Choctaw descendant. See, they always like to remove us from our identity, right? Even if it's a freedman, they can't be freedmen. They got to be descendants of freedmen. Whereas he's a Choctaw. He ain't no descendant of a Choctaw. You see how they play games with us with the words? How they do this daggone spell casting? Make everything less than, remove us from the earth, or try to. What is a Native American? That's the other thing we should be asking. Why don't natives look as the excerpt I just read that was written in 1612 by William Strachey? Why doesn't he have big lips? Why does he have gross thick hair? Why is his nose like it's described in the book? Why is his skin not brown? Nah, Ross was less than 1/6. He wasn't even Choctaw at all. 1/8 or really not at all. What's the evidence that he was at all Choctaw? They just say his grandmother was Choctaw, which would make him like a 1/8, but he's not even a 1/8. He ain't nothing. He wasn't no Choctaw. He was all Scottish because that's who they put in place. They just put straight Europeans. This is what they did. They took the poor enslaved Europeans, got them out of bondage and made them the daggone Native Americans. That's what happened. And then why did the freedmen, what is a Native American? Why would a freedman go across country with a Native American oppressor or their former slave owner? Because if you're a freedman, you free. You're not a slave. Slaves aren't called freemen. That's dumb. You don't got to be a genius to know a freeman is not a slave. The fact that you got Skip and all kinds of Skip Gates and all these so-called intellectuals and these daggone Congress people using the term freeman and calling them slaves in the same breath is ludicrous. Who thinks that somebody called a freeman who has a Freeman Bureau, banks, and builds colleges? Freedmen built the daggone HBCUs, which are the original Indian removal schools, by the way. Why would a freeman tag along with their former oppressor? Because that ain't the story. You see that what a freeman is a free colored person. You see everywhere that you try to look it up, it says they're born free in the law documents, whether it's German or the Black Law book. So wherever you look, freemen's born free. So if they're born free, you have to understand. No, people don't know who they are. I wish they did. They don't know. Because if you know who you are and you're not actually speaking your truth to power, then that's sad. And you're doing a disservice to the entire planet. Because if we have the opportunity to speak truth to power, we need to speak it. Because when you do, you lift everybody up. No, I don't think that they do understand. I hope that they don't. I hope they're not that.
Well, Mike Premier, they may know who we are, but what our problem is, we don't know who we are because we play right into their hands when we call ourselves Native American and all this other stuff. We don't even speak up. We go out and teach our children that we black, that we nothing. This is what we do. And we have an arrogance about ourselves when we do it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. How did the Trail of Tears happen? That's the thing that we have to be clear about. The Trail of Tears happened because of the last Indian War. The Nat Turner Uprising did happen. It was the biggest and the last Indian War. And it's the catalyst that actually caused the Trail of Tears or the Indian Removal Act. Why did they remove and who did they remove? They removed the wealthy Negro Indians, so-called freemen who had the land. Why would you remove a slave? You could let the slave stay and work for you. Why would you let the Indians take their slaves along? That don't even make no sense. If I'm trying to get rid of Indian, I'd be like, no, leave your slave here. He can work for me. Right? No, the Indians had to go because they were the landowners. The freemen had to leave because they had the land. That's why they had to be removed. But they want to hide the fact that the freemen had the land. So what do? Tell you they're slaves. If anything, the Indians were slaves and the daggone freemen owned the Indians. That's the reality. Because the Indians them poor, they were poor immigrants. They didn't have no money. The freemen had money because they were us. They been here. They know how to farm. They know how to make money. They been there going trading, prosperous, just like Anthony Johnson with the Accomax. We had to step up on them. Those government-made Indians were poor Scottish and Irish immigrants. They didn't have anything, and going to Oklahoma was probably the best thing for them because they weren't winning. They were enslaved where they were. Who was the slave? Those folks were the slave. Who were the free? The free men. The Indians were the damn slaves. The free men were free. Come on.
Y'all gotta get this.
Understand that all across, the eastern seaboard, all the way from New England, all the way up to the tippy top east, to the tippy top west, all the way through the middle of the country. That means we're cutting through South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Arkansas, Kansas, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, all the way going to Texas, all the way through Arizona, all the way through to all the way up to Washington State, California was us, the Afro Indians, the Ameri Indians, whatever you want to call it, Negroid in appearance. We were there. The Louisiana Purchase, the people that were deemed Indian, that went to Oklahoma with the Trail of Tears, were those people allowed to call themselves Indian. Understand that didn't happen until the early to mid, really had to be after 1828. So it was after 1830 because the uprising was 1831. The last war was in 1831. The real Trail of Tears didn't start until like the 1840s. That's when the Indian removal act started kicking off. Well, with that being the case, don't you know that the Revolutionary War had occurred? And the War of 1812 had occurred. We had tried, we had battled, we weren't able to get these heathenistic people out of here. And they were bound and determined to take over this whole country. But in addition to that, in 1856, before the Revolutionary War, they had instituted what I call the Indian Dissolution Act of 1756. That 1756 Act of Indian Dissolution was the act that said it don't matter if you got 3 grandparents that are Indian. If you are Negroid, you can't claim to be Indian. That was the first hatchet in our backs. That 1756 Act. That 1756 Act is why there was a separation with the Indians. Also, the fact that people, because of debt and war and various things, debt, war, and what was the other thing? Laws fell into indentureship and servitude. Well, we were still helping our kin. That's why the war jumped off, because we could carry guns, the ones that were, had the complexion for the connection or the money. So you have to understand, if you have money, you ain't enslaved, you're free. If you're a freeman or if you are a free Indian, they can't, if you have a certain financial status, you call yourself what you want. That's always been the case. So these Indians who had land and money, they were able to help their enslaved or whatever caught up family members. And it was a problem. because we was like, nah, we trying to get rid of these people. We were steady fighting to get rid of these daggone wild invaders, these wild Europeans. Because we thought damn Britain was bad with their taxes, but we didn't know. These damn pirates and these crazy wild, all these different countries was in here acting, wilding out in America and on Turtle Island, and we wanted them gone. So with that being the case, they already had separated us. They had to get rid of the ones that had the land and the power. So that's why you got these freedmen going to Oklahoma. They had to get off their land and get away from their prosperity. They separated them from their wealth. A lot of them fell into wealth anyway. Why? Because they were smart and they were moguls, right? So they go to Oklahoma and they build Tulsa. Don't matter. Don't matter where they are because they're winners. They're moguls. So you Trail of Tears, what? I'm gonna win wherever I am. That's what happened. They weren't slaves. So with this being the case, we understand we have all these different things that divided us. These freedmen had built 11 universities before the Civil War. 11 HBCUs. Where's the slavery and the suffering? I don't understand. You're building. They were built several of them in the 1600s. That is not coinciding with what people are depicting us as, these reparations needing people, right? So when you look at the figure of the map and you see that these natives, the ones that they went to go see when they went to Oklahoma, these Siberians, right? The ones that these people that are to this very day are kind of mixed with, that are sitting up there giving the side eye to Maxine. These people. So they're part Scottish and they may have some Siberian. They got a lot going on because they came from Scottish people that moved to Siberia, over there with the Siberian Eurasian Indians. So these people, they are different from us. And until Maxine and the freedmen know that these people are different, that we are not trying to be them, you're welcome, thank you, that we are not trying to be them, we are not them. And it's very clear and well documented the difference. The Louisiana Purchase is when those Europeans met those Plains Indians, and everybody all over this country, they mimicked the Plains Indians because the real Negro Indians, we always innovated. We got a new dance every month. We got a new dance every season. We don't keep dancing the same way. We don't keep building the same things. We're always innovating, inventing, changing. So we don't have some old culture that we keep doing all over and over and over and again. We don't do the same dances. We don't wear the same clothes. That ain't us. That's why when they said in the 1970s and the 50s, thank you, Zena. Exactly. A freeman is born free. A freedman is released from freedom, a slave too. Let me tell you. So basically, when you have this whole system where you think that you want to make pretend Indians, so the government wanted to just designate the Indian. Who's the Indian? Act Indian for me. You know how, hey, why don't you do a dance? Act Indian for me. That's what the Europeans like to do. Make you perform for them, right? So when in the early 50s and 70s, when they were like, oh, I think we could use some Indians around here because we don't know what the Negroes are called, the Negroes, and they don't really have an identity. They might start figuring stuff out. They're getting educated and doing, progressive. They're moving around the country. They may start figuring things out. Let's make these Indians a little more solid, okay? So they're like, do something for us. Do some Indian stuff. If you start Googling stuff, you'll find out that like the what were we looking at? You know how they do those sculptures? What are those called, Nene? I forget. Anyway, I think she left. But anyway, you know how they do those? What are those sculptures they do? The Indian. Anyway, half the things that they do, whether they're the sculptures they make out of wood or whatever, that stuff just started in the 1950s and 60s. They just started doing that stuff because they didn't have no culture to display. So they started making up a culture. And then the other part of it, they stole from the Western Plains Indians, who they're doing Siberian stuff. They're just carrying on their Siberian looks, their Siberian, way of living. In no way. That's Sitting Bull. That's my daddy in the underneath Sitting Bull, and that's my grandfather on the other side, my mama's daddy. And none of those, and in the middle are Lakotas. That's the Lakota, that's the guy who's the head of the BIA and all that, the Interior, the Office of the Interior, and those are some Lakota Indians, women. They don't look like, to me, they look real Asian. Sitting Bull looked different, but he didn't look as Asian as they do. Maybe the girl up front a little bit, but those other ones, And you got to understand, we're not the same people. But then again, they are not as the Indian was described by the first contact people at all. That's the thing that people need to be discussing, and we need to get clear on. Am I off my slides? I think I am. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we need to be clear on that. Let me add that to the string. Okay, so that's the thing. Who are the Indians? We need to be very, very clear on that. And then who are the Native American? Make the definition clear, because if you're not dealing in a clear context as far as history, then how are we able to actually wage any kind of battle? You can't wage a battle and you don't even know who the world you are, or who's the other people on the other side of the daggone situation. You got to know. You gotta be clear. All right. So this is the thing. In addition to the fact that the Plains Indians are Siberian, have Siberian background, there's also was a Chinese slave trade, and also Chinese came in the 1850s. They worked on the railroad. They came for the gold rush. And there's laws on the books that classified them legally as Indians. Classified them legally as Indians. That's why they look more Asian now than they did during Sitting Bull's time. Because they got a new admixture Indian, a fresh new batch. How you like that? Everything can be explained if we do the research. Right?
Absolutely right. And why we must stop picking up these new names and calling ourselves new name because it sound cool, because we're trying to make money off the name. You're trying to make money off yourself. I mean, we coming up with these new names and just won't call yourself what you are. And that's how other people are able to come in and do you like they do you now. Because we're always, I didn't know, I'm confused, huh? You got to start knowing, y'all.
Right. We're splitting ourselves up now even more. Autonomous, and then we got, Aboriginal fighting and all this other stuff. Why would you do that when we got a daggone enough names? We got enough names to be fighting about names. I mean, just find out your family name and deal with that. Then at least you're being true to and authentic to your history. Now, somebody, I get people that like to follow me and check me in different ways. A sister, little unmelanated sister gave me a video of the dude playing the flute. I guess she wanted me to know what a real Indian looked like, child. She was trying to guess she was trying to educate me, give me some real culture. So I listened to him. I was like, he was like, woo, doo, 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 doo. I was like, oh, this is horrible. I was like, okay. Now I sent her a video of a brother playing some blues called Down in Virginia. Okay. And I said, this is our culture. Our culture is blues, rock, jazz, hip hop, what R&B, soul, pop, whatever music that the world is vibing to, we create that. And that's our culture. So don't try to tell me that this daggone Siberian looking dude is my culture. He's not my culture. He's not me. This picture on the other side is a tent. The tent, the teepee, and the people around it are Siberians. His colors and his costume is very reflective of how the Siberians are, and the way they lived in nomadic ways of living in tents is the same as their Siberian predecessors. Why are we letting people snarl at us at meetings and call us African? You have no evidence we have all the evidence that you're Siberian and Asian, and you don't have any proof that we come from Africa. And we've got all the proof that we are the image of the indigenous people. And we have all the records that we have the genealogy and the bloodline of being the indigenous people that are the first contact American Indians. So what is the difference between the Siberian Eurasians? So we got Siberian Eurasians versus first contact American Indians. The first contact American Indians are described by Strachey. We were enslaved due to wars, first of all, slave codes, which actually legalized methods for enslaving us, and through debt, bondage, and indentureship that turned to forever enslavement. Then in 1756, like I said, that act legally denied us the right to identify as Indian. Yet beyond that time, we got our pictures all over the country on money. And that little gold area in the middle, that's actually the 76. That's a citation of the 1756 act that had us reclassified and said you can have three grandparents that are Indian, but that still don't make you Indian. Sorry, not sorry. That's what they did. And down the bottom, that's the Council of the General Court in the colonial Virginia, which shows the Accomack Indians. And we were fighting for our land in 1640. You think these people up in the plains were in those courts fighting for land and laying down the law in 1640 like we were? Do they have the genealogy same as me and my family? See, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that needs to happen in these hearings. They need to get checked. They need to get checked because they're out of line. And then the guy who was from the interior was like, yeah, we don't control them. They're sovereign. They do what they want. May, baby, you've been creating and mandating what an Indian does and gets since the 1700s. Stop lying. You want to see the documents? You want to see all the laws and acts? You want to see the slave codes? What are you talking about? How dare you act like you don't have nothing to do with Indian activities when you have the audacity to recognize or acknowledge people? How dare a corporation of immigrants acknowledge or recognize anybody? At the same time, the people on the other side did not have slave codes. They were not in the revolution. They were not building businesses, hospitals, and universities. They were not farming. They were not being the moguls that were trading with the world. They were not growing things, creating things. They have no land patents, no crown land patents, no Spanish land patents. They don't have that. They're not the same people. But guess what? Because our own people ain't recognizing who we are, other people are taking our place because y'all don't want to do the work of being you. And that's sad. So now, what are these other Indians that we got now? So the people that was in the five civilized tribes that was in that Senate, in that hearing, they are government chosen, recognized Indians. Government selected, or like I like to say, not publicly, but pick me Indians. Pick me. Now, some of them are us, are melanated Indians who had the complexion. And sometimes it's a combination of complexion and political savvy that in the early 1900s, late 1800s, they were able to still keep that Indian identity because they were able to, finesse their way into remaining Nottoway or whatever. I don't know, just whatever. Let me make up a name that's not existing. Nassawajut, Nassawatucks. They were able to keep their to actually organize early and keep it going. So there are these melanated people who are so-called native, who are so-called government chosen, who are pick-me Indians. Pick me, I'm a be Indian. But the reality is, because they are picked, selected, they got to play a game. So they can't reach out and say, hey, Mike. Hey, Sister Carol, come on, girl. You want to organize your people? We're going to help you. No, they can't welcome you in. They can't kind of help you out because they're trying to get their own thing. They're trying to stay relevant with the government. So there's things they can't do. They can't file lawsuits because they will lose all this funding that they get every year and depend on. So they're in a bind. And they're in a state of servitude, which is really interesting because when you ask for something, you got to also know what you ask for. So when the freedmen ask to be part of the Cherokee or part of these other nations, they need to fully understand what they're asking for, because the more powerful thing to be would be just to remain organized freedmen and sovereign as themselves. And that not be under the thumb of the government, but have the freedom of being the first contact people that they are. But you have to know who you are to declare that. And you have to know what you have a right to declare it, right? Yep. So these people on the other side were predominantly Caucasian people. Some of them, like I said, are melanated folks, your cousins and stuff, who are, who their grandpappies and grandmamas was like, we staying Indian. They kind of snuck in there and claimed their Indian status early on and, are still Indian. There are a lot of people who just recently claimed their status as being Indian and may just have one Indian or one eighth Indian. There are people doing that to this day, people that you probably respect very much, and you just don't know the real truth about their story, but you respect them nonetheless. You just don't know. So, but the reality is, at the same time that they allow people to just pay a $5 tax and be Indian, and they have people on the Dawes rolls who only claim to be like 164th Indian. You could be as Indian as you wanted to be, and they still wouldn't allow you to be Indian, because then they added Pleca to it. So they had They had the Civil War, which moved us off of our land and stole our land, which that's all the Civil War was. It was a land grab. It was to take your land. It freed the white slaves and it took your land. And so with that being the case, and then you have Plecker coming, and then they had the deluge of immigrants come in. Because the 1866 treaty that they're talking about was also a land grab. Land was ceded to the U.S. government, the U.S. corporation by the 5 nations. See, that's why they put in these people as chiefs. They were like, I'm making you chief. Really? You know, you're a broke Scottish immigrant, dirt farming for Negroes. You're working on a Negro's farm, or your daddy's leasing land from a Negro Indian, and then somebody taps you on the shoulder and says you can be chief. And then they use you to say, yes, I give this Cherokee land to the United States corporation. Because they announced that all the Negro Indians, all the Afro Indians are, kicked to the curb. So that's how that happened. That's also part of why you were removed and they were put in place. So the government could get access to your land. Everything is about the land, man. I always say it is the land, man. And the first people that should be claiming the land are the Indians, period. That's why I get mad at these other entities, even if they're Black Europeans. I don't want you claiming, don't be claiming no land. I don't really like it because in my opinion, the Indians need to get everything first. If there's stuff left over that you can actually claim your, land patents after the Indians get theirs, have at it. But the Indians need ours first. That's how I feel about it. Sorry, not sorry. I'm just not sorry. Then they say that the freeman is a slave freed of Indian slave owners. So where are these books? Could you move that thing, that Mr. T thing? Where are these books that list all these Indians having slaves? Where are they being listed at? Because Carter G. Woodson got all these records showing us as being Negro, free Negroes and free Negro owners of slaves in the U.S. 1830. We got all these daggone records. Where are their records? Where are their historical records since they're these major slave owners? See, the lie is that the Indian slave owners are the Negro. And I don't even understand how these so-called civilized tribe leaders can sit up there and act like you owned Negro slaves when you have no records in your own damn family. So how are you actually thinking like with a snub attitude, like this is your real story? It's not your story, sir. Now, I got slave owners in my family that are Negroes, colored, Indians. Where are their Indian slave owners that are colored and Negro? Because they're not going to appear to be these. I don't know what they think they're going to have people that look like Pocahontas, Disney movie, and where are these fantasy people that these civilized tribes, so called, where are their ancestors?
Can you explain the term native to everybody? Because I think that's a term that we just don't understand what that means. So can you just give the simple explanation of the word native?
Native means born here. It's a term that they use to be native of the land, but really for the European immigrant, it really means we're the first ones to get here. We're the first ones to get here because to them it don't even mean born there. It don't. Because when they came to Hawaii, the first thing they demanded of the Queen of Hawaii was, make us Native Hawaiians, declare us Native Hawaiians. So it didn't have anything with them being born here. They wanted to be declared native to the land. And in their mind, it means first on the land. Could be born on the land, but they just want to be the first ones. That's why when you see the Slaves of New York, isn't it called? What is it called? The Slaves. What's that movie called?
Oh, when they first came over here, the New Yorkers. I don't know. Gangs of
No.
New York. Gangs of New York.
Yeah, the gangs of New York. They were talking about the natives versus the whatever. So I mean, the people that were here first, they wanted to be the first people that got here and staked whatever claim to whatever being, you know, what the first arrivals or whatever, as white, as Caucasian Europeans. So these Native Americans, they use that because although they use this all this bewitchment and lies, they like to keep track of their lies. Because and in truth, when you tell a lie, you got to keep track of it, because you're not going to be able to, explain your lies or, kind of like, retrace your lies if you don't keep track of them. That's why they made a point of calling their manufactured Indians native rather than just Indians or American Indians. They gave them another name because it's true. It describes them well because they're not of this soil. They are not the landlords. That's why they made them the Indians, because they can always say, look, you're not from here. You're not from here. Right, the Know Nothing Party, the Native American. Those were the Europeans who called themselves Native Americans in the North, in New York and up there. They called themselves, it was a Know Nothing Party, that's right. But see, so they always want to be called, they want to claim Native status. They did that as being called Native Hawaiians. And then they made themselves of higher status than the actual Hawaiians in Hawaii. They got Native Americans. They put themselves, the Europeans, as the Native American Indians. It's a mechanism for them to push you out and put themselves in. Everything's about status. And if you don't understand it, you need to know. And that's why everything needs to be about you reclaiming your status and stating your status and correcting your status. And it's not about doing FCC codes or UCC codes. It's about educating these people. You know what I mean? It's about regulating and letting them know, yo, I know who I am. This is who my people are. This is our real history. You can't tell us who we are, and we have a very rich bloodline. The strongest out there. And we will not be denied what's ours anymore. And we ain't got to fight you because we don't have to. Because we have the facts on our side. We have the truth on our side. You ain't got to fight. So half these people, even there's a family in Virginia who they did a whole little special on 60 Minutes talking about they brought a plantation that their people were enslaved on that plantation. No, they weren't enslaved. They brought their own family plantation. That was a damn ripoff. They paid for their family plantation. They brought it from the white people that took it from their family. See, we don't even know what we're looking at half the time. Everybody's black. Slave owners, black. Not trying to tell you they don't change the records, because they do. They do. But guess what? The originals are out there. They're still out there. See, you can only cover up so many tracks. You only can lie so much. They can't lie to cover up all that they've done because they didn't do a good job of covering it in the first place. We have to understand that we are the first contact, and the first contact Indians were brown, colored, Negro, Afro Indians. that can be verified both by primary written descriptive accounts and early artistic drawings of us. We have to be very clear about that. But we also have to know who we are. So we got to do our genealogy. That's where your power is. That's where your power is. There's people people been doing fake stuff, fugazi stuff, fugazi for years, and they still are as we speak. But there's nothing more powerful than being in the truth. Can't nobody stop you when you're in the truth. When you are doing what is actually you, when you are exerting what is actually your principled right. We got to understand there's been a systemic and historical legal dissolution of the identity of the first contact Afro-Indians, preventing us by penalty of death from claiming our American Indian status or identity. That's why you're sitting in that seat as being a Choctaw, and I'm over here, disinherited. Because what was legally done and done through war, oppression, and mass exodus. We've been going through a continuous holocaust, but we smile and dance the whole time. You wouldn't even know it. You don't even know it. Heck, we don't even know it. But we've been going through a continuous holocaust.
Lisa, could you go back to that last picture you showed? Is that a Moor?
Hell no. It says a Mississippi Indian on the bottom.
No, I was just joking because this is what I'm thinking. This is how we're always confused, using the wrong terms about ourselves, not knowing, I didn't know. This is how we do it. You got people, drawings that look like people in your family, current people in your family, and you will fight to call yourself an immigrant.
Because people make up these organizations to keep us from getting together with our own families. Sorry.
No, because Yolanda Sanders say they get mad when you tell them that. Mm-hmm. So all you got to do is ask them to explain it. None of them, not FBA, ADOS, they can't explain this. If you ask them to show them the foundational Black American, they're not going to show you this. They're going to show you something else. I didn't know. I had this son. That's what they're going to show you. They're not going to show you the indigenous people. This is what disconnects you from the land. She just gave you 17 names. They've been trying to disconnect you from your land. We won't even walk on the land. We rather walk on concrete. How'd that happen? And again, as always, we're arrogant about it. This is how they disconnect you from your home.
So when we look at the fact that they use the 1756 Act of Indian Dissolution, which turned the pale-faced Indians, Caucasians, into Indians and removed us from our Indian identity. Then you got the Indian Removal Act. Then you got the Racial Integrity Act, which I didn't even have room for. Freedmen is connected with the Freedmen's Bureau, Freedmen's Bank, the builders of HBCUs. None of it is connected to that slavery that they tried to make it be, that they're just slaves. See, everything, when they want us to look in the mirror, when they have our children enter school, They only wanted them to see themselves as slaves. And then these Black supremacists who are actually under the guise trying to fight for so-called reparations, all they're trying to do is mess with your mind so that you'll embrace that slave that you're not, and that you will disrespect your ancestors, and you won't bother to do your research because all you are is a slave, and there's not records for slaves. You won't bother to look. You just be sitting there back, tapping your foot, waiting on your reparations to come. That's what they want you to do. These people are overseers, making sure you don't reclaim your identity and your heritage. They're all over the YouTube. They're all over the internet. They're all over the damn on television, trying to make sure that your dreams, thoughts, and emotions are fixated on you being a reparation getting slave. How do you win? If you look at this fight or this battle for your identity and for your land as a battle, how do you win if you're following the playbook provided by your opponent? If you're listening to whatever they tell you you are and all the history that they write for you to believe, how are you supposed to win? Going there reciting back what they have fed you. Because this is a battle for your indigenous status and for your land. They got celebrities, movies, news, historians, racism, indoctrination, political leaders, Black social media, all fighting against you becoming the landlord again. And then you got these people with their little proud voices. I know I descend from Freeman. Don't look, I'm a Freeman. If my people are a Freeman, I'm a Freeman. If that's what you want to call yourself, that's just a weird term. And it's a very small population of people, and it's a weird space and time, very specific. But if that's what they want to be, that's what they are. Yet they use the same information that their oppressors give them. So they call themselves African. They say they're Freemen, yet they still call themselves African. How is that working? Because if that is actually true, then it makes me agree with these fake Native Americans. Well, you're African. What are you doing talking about you need Indian stuff? That doesn't make sense. If you really are African, why are you claiming Indian stuff? So they're not even consistent in their claim. They're not consistent. You can't get mad. They can't get mad when the Native American chiefs and their council people say, "Oh, they're African American." Well, they call themselves African American. But at the same time, these daggone Europeans don't call themselves European. They call themselves full-fledged Choctaw, full-fledged Creek, and full-fledged daggone Cherokee. They don't add nothing. Now, I will say the Cherokee said they're proud. They included everybody. They enrolled like 16,000 people that are new to the Cherokee Nation. So they've opened their doors to those that were trying to claim their status from being freedmen. So they've done their restitution as far as what they're saying. But these other, like Maxine says, they're all still holding out. But then I will also say, what do you want out of them? Because they ain't got crap. See, the thing about it is that if you actually know who you are, you do your genealogy, there's more that you can get being the first contact real Indians than these fake government pick me Indians. Pick me. No, they're enslaved. They're enslaved. They're not free. They're not sovereign. The government likes calling them sovereign, but these Indians know they ain't sovereign. Ain't nothing sovereign about them. They can't even pee without somebody knowing it. They can't do anything. They have no freedom. That is an absolute fallacy. So when you're saying I'm a freeman and I want to have what they have, you got to understand who they are. And you also got to understand, what are you really asking for? And you can't really ask for anything when you don't know who you really are and what you're really entitled to. You can't put anything in context. As Indigenous people, we have the right to restitution, to repatriate our people, to have our land restored, to be acknowledged. Man, we need to acknowledge the United States. We need to recognize them. There is nothing that this corporation has to offer that should not be extended to us. That's the way things should go. But it can't happen if you don't get yourself off the block and make it happen. But guess what? Somebody else's is. And I want to share with you what Amani Bay shared yesterday. And I was like, I really still can't get my mind around this. This is disturbing, like for real. It's bad. So let me see where I put his. Oh, no, went too far, way too far. I guess I don't know. Oh, no. That's interesting. That's it. Okay. All right, here we go.
Plus adjudicated Spanish and Mexican land grant heirs who are seeking justice for years of crimes against our families' rightful inheritance from murder and outright theft of trillions of dollars in royalties paid in the state of Texas trust fund and not released to us. Wait a minute. Now we know that there are over 557 melanated towns. Well, what's a town, family? It sits on land, right? If you're the founder of a town, especially during that time, what are you going to need? What do you need? You need one of those Spanish land grants to patent it. That's what you need. This is what they're talking about. All right, so we are outraged. So let me move down here because there's a quick video. I want you guys to see this. A quick video here. Let's go down to the video here. Let this video talk. Right here, family. It's going to blow your mind. Right here. Okay, here we go right here.
They say they've been shortchanged for more than a century and that now it's time for the state to pony up a chunk of the fortune that they have been denied. Fox 26's Greg Rugen explains how thousands of Texans with Spanish blood in their veins are taking their demand for unclaimed cash to the Texas state
land battle going on here in Texas with millions of dollars at stake. It's not about who lives on the land now, rather who lived on it generations ago. In a story you'll see only on Fox, Greg Rugen explores why thousands of Texans with Spanish blood say the state may owe them a
now we have been chronicling the efforts of Spanish descendants to reclaim energy wealth held by the state of Texas.
And recently, that struggle moved to a Texas courthouse where the ancestors of this state's earliest settlers showed up in force to fight for their rights. Fox 26's Greg Rugen was right there.
We're here to be the voice of our ancestors. Since oil rights were never transmitted, those oil rights remain in the family.
For many here, it's just the latest chapter in a century-old story of dispossession and denial.
We lost our lands and our royalties and everything to the oil companies.
We also know that some were duped. In other words, they were tricked into getting off the land.
Here, accounts of forced eviction and violent intimidation are plentiful. Real tragedies preserved and passed down through the generations.
They were told that if you continue your search to get the property back, you will be shot dead.
All for billions of dollars worth of energy wealth that could have changed fortunes, altering hard-scrabble lives for the better.
Being out in the fields picking cotton when they should have had money.
Let's stop it there, family. Did you hear what she just said? Her ancestors were in the fields picking cotton. They're replacing us, family. What are you going to do about it? Are these the ones with the 500 plus towns started by their ancestors? No. You let these warlocks come in here, put a spell on you, and you've been quiet. You've acquiesced. And this is the result. Sorry, I get passionate about this. Let's continue.
They didn't have to suffer.
A lot of children that could have gotten a good education and could have made something of themselves.
For Al Cisneros, it is a powerful legacy, which inspires as much pride as his years flying with the Blue Angels. And yet, simmering beneath his love of country is a fury over what he calls a terrible wrong.
Those faces that I remember as a child, and their suffering, their anguish, and their tears. Los terrenos vivos, que lost the land.
Here's where the story gets truly interesting. Over the past 5 years, a lady lawyer in LaPorte has convinced 11,000 descendants that mineral wealth beneath land long lost or sold is still their rightful inheritance.
About $1 billion is unclaimed royalty interests that belong to these unknown heirs.
Her name.
Let's stop right there. This is key. Okay, here we got this bar member, this lawyer, who said they have a right to their land. And she said there's a list of all these people, unknown, unnamed heirs. Now let's analyze this here, family. Now, because this gets into the theft of geography. Spanish land grants, right? But wait a minute. They want you to believe that the individuals who set up the Spanish land grant and were dominating those areas are from the place that we call Spain today, way over there. Well, if that's true, the heirs would be over there claiming it. And they would definitely know that. They wouldn't be, this lawyer just told you, we got this list of names of these from these Spanish land grants, unclaimed, unknown heirs. Where the hell are they? I thought Spain was over there, family. I thought they were, wouldn't they, those heirs over there know that? You think they're going to let trillions of dollars go by without claiming it? Especially now, there's no freedoms over there. The last 2 years during the lockdown, those European nations like Spain and Italy, and they're under hard police state, tyranny. But the heirs aren't over there. They're not the heirs of these Spanish land grants. Let's continue. Just a minute left with this video here.
Is Eileen Fowler.
I am a crusader.
And a convincing one at that. Fowler says these land grant families never relinquished their mineral rights when their ancestors sold or were pushed off the property. After energy was discovered, many oil companies made only token attempts to learn who truly retained the rights. The practice Fowler calls grand theft.
You took these people's inheritance for 100 years.
There it is, family. Took these
people inheritance for 100 years. Well, I thought the Spanish were the pale skins. You best believe the pale skin has an inheritance of oil. They would know that. They would have it. I thought they were over in Spain, that little island over there in Europe called Spain. No, where are the heirs, family? Well, we know who they are. We know who they are. We know who they are. Now, let's take it a little deeper, family. Let's give an example of an actual individual who owned land in Texas.
I mean, so many Negro, so many Afro-Indians own so much land, oil, mineral rights. There are precious stones, all of this in Texas. Yet we got people on YouTube just cooning and carrying on, not getting anything done. We got people misrepresenting. I was out in Texas for a good while. I offered to get together with a young brother. I was like, I'll help you get your paperwork done. He knew his Indian. He had done his research. He knew his Indian, the Indians that were in the county where his grandmama, great grandma was. He knew it. But he was sidetracked by these charlatans on the internet that Black Wolf or Fire Wolf or Lion Wolf or Bad Wolf or whatever these people are, trying to make you use UCC codes. And I said, what kind of Indian is he? What are you doing? I was like, look, I'm out here. I can meet you in the hotel lobby. We can get this paperwork done, try to get you to understand how to get this organized. Nah. There is so much wealth in Texas. That's why they are dead set on destroying those Indians there. That's why they do things that they don't do in other pet places in Texas. And now they've unleashed a bunch of fraud dodo birds to act like they're the Negro Indians and take their land. But ain't nobody doing anything real there. Why? How long are we going to keep listening to the same old people say the same old thing and not really do anything? Texas can't afford to be that way. Because they'll do it there, they can do it anywhere. Because the Mexicans are moving everywhere. And they got the complexion for the connection to pretend that they're the Indians and they're the originals. According to the mythology that we're taught. And y'all gonna let them just walk in and take what's yours. And they got 1,400 people. They got a whole crowd to gather up and hoot and holler to get some money that doesn't even belong to them. And we can't get together and get what we need for us that is actually belongs to us. Come on. I talk to people all the time. Yeah, well, it's not easy and nobody's going to help. And I'm waiting for somebody else to do something. You're going to wait for somebody else to do something. Somebody's going to do something and they're going to do you right out of what's yours. Because there are foreign people that are claiming your inheritance right now. And without me actually calling people out on the spot, I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of fraudulent people who are actually claiming what you should be claiming. And they're winning. And they're getting like major. And they're not you. That's a problem. How you going to be in a position where you're going to let foreign people step over your back, on your back, to take what belongs to you?
Lisa, can I share this real quick? This is what I mean about our thinking gonna have to be vibrating way higher than what these clowns tell us. We're gonna have to start thinking, y'all. So this is a map of the world. And how they said those Mexicans are coming up trying to get that land that you once occupied. You have to remember that Texas, Mexico, it wasn't that those weren't states before. Though that was one landmass. That was you living there. I know plenty of people from Texas that they don't even know this. You tell them that, they laugh at you. The reason I have a picture of the map of the world up there is that if you look where Mexico is, and let's just say you take a straight line right through the heart of Mexico, take it around the world, what do those people look like? They all look the same. Why? Because they all get the same amount of sun. They may be from different regions and stuff, but they're basically the same shade of people. Right there through Mexico looks just like your average Negro that's here in America now, the African American, whatever. And like Lisa said, we just let these people walk on up here and just claim our stuff, and we don't say nothing. Please, somebody explain that.
Because when you don't know the truth about who you are and what was taken from you, and what you are actually entitled to, then you're going to settle for somebody giving you a couple of benefits, being a freedman or being a, being a part of a nation that, has little limited benefits. You're going to settle for that. When in reality, they know that they don't own what they took from you. They never have. They just plopped here and said, oh, I own this now, by the way. Oh, yeah, you can stay here. You can stay. Yeah, you can stay and farm, but yeah, we own this. That part. That's what they did. And then, with every generation, it becomes more and more theirs because we forget, we pass on. The last word that we heard was, they own it now. We didn't question it, just like with the hearings. We don't question them calling us African. We don't question what a freedman is. We don't question what a Native American is. We don't question what a real first contact Indian looked like. We don't question, why are you calling us African when we don't have any African cousins that you're linking us up to with this DNA? And they're not coming over here claiming to be our cousins. And we haven't been documented as being African in all these historical records. So why do we have all these other names if we're simply Africans? All of that. If we don't bring up all these things to lend some daggone, light and logic to what's going on the planet, we're not going to be able to win.
Black Wolf, and don't take this the wrong way, but this is getting redundant. Calling yourself something that you're not, we're trying to get away from that because that's what keeps us locked in this ball of confusion. You're not black. You're not the color black. Black is what other people teach their children that what monsters are in their myths and fairy tales. They teach their children that black is always the monster. But you teach your kids that they are black. And now that you have this bit of information, you're going to say, nigga, fuck you, nigga. I can call myself what I want to call myself. And you're going to keep doing it. So we don't get into that calling. Call yourself what you were. It's simple. It's simple. You got all kind of places, even in Texas, that belong to those people down there's land who they call themselves black. And we keep getting caught up in these names that don't mean nothing. And I'm sorry, if your ass can't learn, if you don't give a shit about yourself, nobody is either. This is simple stuff that we be 80, 90 years old and never get it. So, brother, nobody's talking about you. Ugh.
That wasn't the name. It was bad. It's Bad Wolf anyway. It's a guy who does information about UCC codes and how to, like,
I know, but it's
sidestep
all
the government. It's not.
Nobody's talking about you. That ain't it.
Nobody's talking about you.
Yeah. So, Lisa,
but it's still true. I mean,
you're muted.
we need to use the names of our families and connect with our families and be bold, be present. It's very important, for me, that people know what I know. It's very important that people know that I'm not for the okie doke, that they know I'm a research person. So when they think that they're going to, put anything over on me or, make me an offer and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's great. No, I know exactly what people are doing when they're doing it. I know exactly, what's going on, in the world. But the reality is, if you don't value yourself, if you don't value your heritage, if you don't value your inheritance, if you don't value your rights, and respect them, you're not going to get them, and nobody else is going to respect them. Nobody's going to be like, here, you know what I mean? Here is your rights and respect and, status. You have to manifest that. You have to demand that. Nobody's going to do it for you. It's a battle, but it's really not. It's a mental thing, spiritual. That's where the battle is. And the biggest battle you're going to have is against yourself, for just giving up or selling yourself short or not believing that you can actually manifest the things that you should be able to manifest. That's going to be the battle. You have to battle yourself from limiting yourself, because anything's possible. You can do it all, but you got to believe that. You got to recognize that the sky is the limit, and the limit ain't the sky, and you can just keep going. The universe is yours, like that. What is with him and the wolf? Okay. They shot a whole bunch of wolves. They hired a lot of American Indians to shoot, and Native Americans too, to kill the wolves. There's something about these, although they romanticize the wolf man and all this kind of stuff, the Europeans had a real issue with the wolves, I guess because they brought over so much livestock that, and I don't really know why they were about killing the wolves, but they decimated the wolf population.
Well, and this is what I mean by, looking at ourselves like this. And Black Wolf, this is what I mean by that. What was called black in this current history was something called the Black Panther. I mean, they make a movie about it now, some fantasy stuff. But it was a group of people that called themselves Black Panthers. And those people that were Black Panthers, you know what they are famous for? They're famous for sending their children out to be murdered while they got government jobs, teaching jobs, all kind of jobs. That's what the Black Panthers represent here in America. Because we look at ourselves as animals, we look at ourselves as things, and we don't get it. We don't move on. We'll fight and kill for that. But one thing we don't do, we never do, is call ourselves simply who we are. Can you explain that? Could you explain that, Lisa?
Well, I was just looking at Sister Carol. She was saying there's strength in numbers, and I wish we would get together and present our truth to get recognition. Well, first of all, we don't. I mean, I don't. I never liked recognition. Like, who are they? They don't have the authority or the. I don't respect them to the level that I seek recognition from them. You know, I like for them to know our truth, and I want them to rectify the wrongs, and restitution is definitely good. But like you said, I mean, the fact that we don't, what is going on with us? What is going on with us, and what is it going to take for us to actually do what we need to do? What do you think, Buck?
I think right now, this where we're at now in the world, the current generation, I guess we have what they are. They the baby boomers. They're done. They're out of the way. You know.
Yeah.
So I think it's upon their children to hit the people that are like just being born 5, 6, 7 years old now, because it seems like we're just not getting it. These so-called black men, these what you call them, these black Europeans, these what do you call them, black supremacists? They just seem intent on keeping the confusion going on, calling yourself all these. Don't we understand that calling ourselves all these different names makes it impossible for us to do anything of cohesiveness? Makes it impossible. And these are people in your families. Most of these people that you're talking about, they're family members. They'll get a government job and dick you over every time. That's what you do. Right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. I would suggest simply find your people and call yourself who they call themselves. And got some cold names. Your people back then were farther ahead than we are now, and we refuse to hook up with them. So I'm seeing what's going on, but what I'm seeing with these brothers and sisters today. Damn.
Well, let's hack it out. I don't know if we want to put it's getting a little late, but this is the thing, Sister Carol. In order to gain your land back, because Amani Bay, he does a lot of talk about land, and he's mostly I think European, but the problem in my mind with that is that, first of all, when you do that and you're just Citizen Lisa, you're gonna have people that coming for you because you're not the only one. You're not the only one who's connected to that person, to that particular ancestor, right? So how do you handle that? I feel like the fact that we are organized as Accomack Indians, and I have a people that I have reached out to, and create a mechanism of we're a people, we're a nation. It actually does create a system where you can do the right thing, and really there's no it's not a lot of drama, because it's something, you already have a mechanism to share what you do through your people. And so that's why it's important for you to know your genealogy and find out what Indian are you, Sister Carol. I mean, or if you're an Indian at all, find out who you are. I don't know what anybody is, but I think it's important for us, just like the freedmen. You call yourself a freedman, but you don't know what a freedman is. yeah, you find out not only what you are, but what that means in your life, and then do the things that can be done for you to make the most of your identity, right? But as being indigenous, which, you know, that's the most powerful and first contact, there's no higher status than that. Honestly, we just don't know it because we're not doing it. And that's why they want us dead. And that's why they want us suppressed. And that's why they want us miseducated. Because once if we were to understand what we could do as being the people that we truly are by blood, we'd be unstoppable. The other thing is, somebody says something else. Oh, why not just use Aborigine? Because Mike James, when I go into the records, it's not Aborigine that you see. You're not going to see Aborigine. When I showed you the court document, the colonial document with the Acumax, it doesn't say Aboriginal. It says Indians. So if I'm using Aboriginal and the historical colonial documents say Indians, why would I confuse the situation? I'm going to use a terminology that makes it the most clear.
And then another thing,
And the whole thing, he said this, let me get this thing. And the whole thing about shaking the whole Native American thing, that's our job, is to shake that image. Every time I come out and talk to people, that's what my job is, to shake that image. And then it is our job to go to the schools and teach the children, and go to daggone historical organizations. Everybody who is an indigenous person and who is activated should join the historical organizations in their county, in their region, in their state, because and become members at the museums, because that's how you have a voice. Become a patron, and then speak up about the true history. That's how we change things, you see. So no, yeah, the reason that they can't shake the image is because the people who are at the forefront are uneducated and miseducated and indoctrinated, because Maxine doesn't know who she is, because she doesn't know what a freedman is. So when she stands amongst the Native Americans, she can't speak truth to these people. She can't re-educate them. She can't correct them.
and another thing, Mr. James, is when we use these terms, we try to use terms that are simple so that children can understand. And when you start using these terms that they give you to describe yourself, it's like Lisa said, it's like you're playing a team and they're giving you your plays. Aboriginal means away from original. It's pulling you away from yourself. And this is what I'm saying. I mean, this shit is simple. This shit is simple. And either you're for separating us, which I think that's what it is, because this shit is too simple for us not to know. Simply do your genealogy, call your people what they call themselves. We act like that's the hardest shit in the world. But this is what I'm saying. This is what we do to ourselves. And then those people who are trying to get your land down here, they'll come pick up something you say, you do a video saying we Aboriginal and all this. They'll say, see, even they say it. That's how we lose.
And if you look at the bottom of the screen where it says Council General and it has a big G, it says Indians, Accomack Indians, Indians, Indians. So my lawsuit, I don't go around saying Aboriginal, Aboriginal, Aboriginal in my complaint. Why would I say Aboriginal when the court documents on which my actual claim lies on, the foundation of my claim, calls my relatives, my ancestors, Indians. I'm going to use the terminology that my ancestors accepted in court back in the 1600s and the 1800s. That's what I'm going to use. You have to use what is being applied to the land and to your claim. And that's why when people want to use these terms because they have some kind of hard on for them or some, let me stop being crass. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, some kind of weird obsession with these terms.
No, that's exactly what it is.
It's weird.
Because they never make no sense. It's like, dude, what are you saying?
What is the point?
Don't you have some people called Chitamacha? Who are them? Who are they? You got names, your fingerprints all over this country, but you will call yourself names other people give you and wonder why you always in 5th place in a 4-man race.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the best source for assisting with genealogy? MacB, I would say start here. You have children, start with them, go through you, your wife, y'all mothers and fathers, they mothers and father, get to a county where those people are who are the Indians in that county. You don't have to go back that far. There you are. Instead of integrating into some school, letting them teach you that you came over here on a boat, pissing and shitting on each other in the middle of a hurricane. That's what we have to give our children for their history.
We have to we have to start standing up and speaking out. And it's not just like at joining meetings and stuff, like even at work. I mean, for instance, if you know this and your sisters don't know this, or your brother doesn't know what you like to watch and what you have been studying, and your children don't know about it, but you just talk about it, or if your neighbor you haven't had a discussion, or the people at work, you don't talk about it at work, that's a problem. Because like I said, if I ride an Uber, they're gonna know who I am. Well, yeah, but that's I mean, I don't know what they did, but I had been in a battle a few years ago with Wikipedia about doing our hit Wikipedia citation. They were giving me crap, and it's really weird because Wikipedia actually, the people that actually are like the gurus and the gods of the Wikipedia are foreigners. They're not even here. They're like these British guys or German guys. They're not even here. So I mean, yeah, I hadn't really looked up Accomac or to see if they have us some kind of something listed. I know they have our king or something, but I don't know. But yeah, it hasn't been, because I have the lawsuit that have been focused on, as well as other things. I haven't really dealt with Wikipedia citation. But yeah, I mean, that's a battle too. We have to make sure we change our narrative about what is said. But the reality is that, the lawsuit and, the different types of activities that we have going on the Eastern Shore, and the repatriation of the Accomacs is a known thing, to the point that, they come contact me, whether, it's the Williamsburg, Society for their museum in Williamsburg, Virginia, or some of or the University of Virginia. They're aware of us. They know, and they know we are real. But it's because you have to talk up who you are and you have to make sure that you make your presence known. And that has to start with you doing your research, going to archive.gov or ancestry.com, or, and just walking yourself back in history and discovering your roots. And odds are, if you're doing your genealogy, there's somebody else besides you that's done your family genealogy way before you did, and they've got records. That's also why it's just so important to communicate with your family, because there's odds are, like I said, there's keeper of pictures, keepers of photos, and keepers of genealogy. Just about everybody has someone in their family who does that. So that's the most important source. Right. That National Archives, that's where Zena Akamak, Zena Rones, she works for the archives, so in Georgia. So you know, definitely also a good source. But yeah, a lot of things are online for now. For how long, we don't know. For how long they're going to be accurate, we don't know. I know that they're falsifying stuff minute by minute. I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, wow. They messing with the records like there was, remember that daggone day I told you I looked at the record like in the morning and it had changed by noon.
Yes.
They're changing stuff. So yeah, you need to get on it. If you're gonna do your genealogy, get on it, get it done. Because like I said, they are altering records.
Well, Lisa.
No, it's not even that. Everybody won't agree. I mean, that's the thing. At a certain point, you need to agree. Because you know why? This is the thing that I don't like, that people say that everybody. Let me tell you something. You need to agree. Why? Because there's just the truth. There's a right answer. For some reason these days people like to say, "Oh, you got a right to say what you think." But there is a right answer, y'all. There are wrong answers and there are right answers. That exists. So if you're not trying to do anything with your identity, it doesn't matter what you call yourself. But if you're trying to organize yourself as your people, the people that you come from, then what words you use in describing yourself does matter. Because calling yourself a Tachinis or an Aboriginal is just going to confuse what you're doing. Period. And that is the truth about it. You can sit up there and say everybody won't agree, but you're just wrong. It's just wrong. Because the records speak for itself. You will not find a stack that goes around the world of documents that use the term Aboriginal to define your people. But I can find a daggone stack that goes around the world to describe my people that says Indian. It's just a matter of the facts, And I don't understand why we sit there pretend that it's an opinion thing and there's no wrong answer when there is a wrong answer. But it's like I said, if you ain't doing crap, which most of these brothers that are talking like this ain't doing nothing with their identity anyway. And so you don't know that because you haven't done anything. So you haven't had to sit up there and go into a room and talk to people about your identity that are, historical people or people that you hadn't had to, write things up that are, that have to do with the law that's applied to your identity as a nation. You haven't had to do that. So of course you have no real frame of context to argue this out at. So you argue with somebody who's doing real stuff and you're trying to act like you're an expert. That's the problem with half these people that are on the internet. They haven't done nothing. They just get on the internet and talk. And all these people are following them like, yeah, I'm for that Aboriginal. Okay, stop.
Well,
But like I said, if you're not doing anything, that's the best term for you. That way we know, we kind of separate who's doing something and who's not. The people that ain't doing nothing call themselves Aboriginal. They're not really actually organizing themselves. They're never going to actually be like contending for any real rights, land, or status, or laws, or anything like that. They're not going to be talking to the district attorney or doing any kind of things like that. So, yeah, but they call themselves what they want.
I said, Lisa,
Where are these Aboriginals in the census? I ain't never seen as long as I've been doing genealogy for 30 years, I've never seen the term Aborigine in any sentences. You're just lying. What are you talking about? See, that's just why do people just make up lies, and they think that they're like white people. They can make up a lie, people are gonna believe just anything.
and then when you call them on it, you get nothing.
Aborigine is not what we are, and so that's the thing. You just got to go with what the documents. Just go with the documents. Go with what your people. That's what I'm saying. We have 17 names, but African ain't not one of them. Aboriginal is even less prevalent than African. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. Well, yeah, I wouldn't even say that. But Aboriginal is very rarely used, especially in historical documents. So that being the case, you want to be the one that everything flows. You want everything to be like, see, this is me, this is my people, like that. You want it to flow. Okay, that's cool. All right, so we're gonna call it a night. Anybody got any questions? We good? Did I leave anything on the floor? We gotta pick anything up. I don't think I left anything on the floor. Looking. Nope. I think we hit it all. Yep, that's everything.
So, Lisa, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, sharing with us.
Oh, let me put up the banner so we know what's the brand rather. This is let's do that because we gotta know in case we ever we gotta meet up. We gotta know where to meet up at. We gotta find the Indigenous one. Where's it? Yes, there we go. That's the website.
Come check us out, y'all. When you learn how you're connected to this land, your mouth is gonna be agape. You're not gonna know what to say. Calling yourself all this stuff, all it does is just take you from the land and allow other people to slip in your place, because that's what's been happening. So we want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. Come back tomorrow. We're gonna hit you again with another one tomorrow. We hope you guys have a nice day tomorrow. Talk to you later. Peace.